So, how in the world did a bunch of notoriously difficult French ideas, what we all now call theory, manage to escape the cafes of Paris and basically conquer the planet? We're talking about thinkers like Foucault and Derrida. Their work is dense, it's abstract, it's very French. So how did it end up everywhere from Beijing to Bogota? Well, the story of how it all happened is way stranger and honestly more fascinating than you might think.
The crazy thing is, the thinkers themselves, they never saw this coming. Jean Baudrillard, who is a key figure in all this, he basically saw these ideas as a purely local product. He even called any attempt to export them an unfortunate transfer, because he believed they were, like fine French wine, just too culturally specific to travel well.
Well, he could not have been more wrong. What happened next turned into one of the great intellectual plot twists of the 20th century.
So at the exact moment these thinkers were getting buried in their own country, dismissed as old news, as outdated fads, their work was causing an absolute explosion everywhere else. Seriously. While France was moving on, the rest of the world was just discovering these writers and finding this powerful toolkit in their work, a completely new way to question power, to analyze culture, and to deconstruct truths they'd always taken for granted.
All right, so how did this all go down? In this explainer, we're going to follow that trail. We'll look at the surprising engine that made it all happen, we'll see how it got remixed in different corners of the globe, we'll uncover its even deeper roots, and then finally, we'll ask what this whole story tells us about how ideas travel today.
Let's start with the first and maybe the most crucial stop on this whole journey. And trust me, it's not where you'd expect.
Yep, you heard that right. The secret ingredient to French theory's world tour wasn't France at all. The real engine that took these ideas and shot them around the planet was the American academic system. It became this kind of massive processing plant for all these raw philosophical materials.
It basically worked like this, in a pretty simple three-step process. First up, the raw, super dense philosophical texts were imported from France. Next, American academics translated, interpreted, and this is the key part, packaged them into more accessible forms. And then, this newly packaged theory was exported worldwide, often coming out of universities like Stanford or Columbia.
So what did this packaging actually look like in practice? Well, for one thing, it meant creating anthologies and readers that made the big ideas way easier to digest. But even more importantly, it meant using these ideas to build entirely new fields of study. Think about it. For so many people around the world, their first encounter with Foucault wasn't by reading his original work, but by reading an American academic like Judith Butler on gender or Homi Bhabha on postcolonialism.
Okay, so now for part two, remixing theory around the world. Because once this packaged theory went global, it wasn't just passively downloaded. Oh no. It was actively remixed, reinterpreted, and put to use in ways that absolutely no one could have predicted.
Our first stop is Latin America, where intellectuals had a very different and a much more direct relationship with all these ideas.
See, unlike in a lot of English-speaking countries, Latin American universities didn't wait around for the American interpretation. They had these powerful local publishers and a really strong tradition in the social sciences, so they were translating and reading the original French texts almost as soon as they came out. And that meant they were engaging with the ideas on their own terms, completely bypassing that American filter.
And this led to some frankly incredible applications. I mean, we're not just talking about abstract academic debates here. The famous Subcomandante Marcos, the leader of the Zapatista rebels in Mexico, he literally wrote his university philosophy thesis on Foucault. This is theory being used as a real-world tool for revolutionary thought.
All right, let's jump over to our next destination, India. And this is where the story of theory takes a deeply unexpected and super politically charged turn.
What we see here is, well, one of the strangest political alliances you can imagine. On one side, you have American-based post-colonial theorists using these French ideas to critique Western science as a form of colonial dominance. But on the other side, you have right-wing Hindu nationalists from the BJP grabbing onto those exact same arguments. They started claiming Western science was imperialist to justify replacing it with something they called Vedic science. It's a truly bizarre case of intellectual strange bedfellows.
For our last stop on this little world tour, we're off to Japan, a place where French theory was hybridized in some of the most creative ways imaginable.
And this is just a fantastic example of how wild the transformations could get. In Japan, these dense philosophical concepts weren't just stuck in the university. They were being used to analyze everything, including pop culture. So you had critics seriously analyzing the monster Godzilla as a symbol of chaotic, uncontrollable energy, using the super complex ideas of Deleuze and Guattari. Now that's a remix. So, we've traced this incredible path from France through America to the rest of the world. But hang on, the story has one last major twist. The origins of this journey actually lie across another border, and even further back in time.
Because what if what we call French theory wasn't actually all that French to begin with?
This slide really lays out the entire, incredible chain of events. The journey doesn't start in France. It starts with German thinkers, Nietzsche, Marx, Heidegger, Freud. Their work then passes through the first filter, a creative French rereading by figures like Foucault and Derrida. Then comes that second filter, the American interpretation, which packaged it all for export. And the result? The worldwide theory that we know today. It's a multi-layered process of translation, all the way down.
So after following this incredible global journey, what's the big takeaway? Why does any of this matter?
The story of worldwide theory really shows us that an idea's power has nothing to do with maintaining some pure, original meaning. Its true value is found in how people use it. It's a toolkit, and what matters is what people build with that toolkit, whether that's a new field of literary criticism, a revolutionary manifesto, or even an analysis of Godzilla.
You know, Gilles Deleuze, one of the central figures in our story, he captured this perfectly. He said that to think is to interpret, to translate. There's no single ultimate truth, no logos, to uncover, just hieroglyphs that we're all constantly trying to decipher and make sense of in our own way. And this whole journey of theory is pretty much the ultimate proof of his point.
And that leaves us with one last question to think about. This story we just told, it happened over decades through books and conferences. But today, ideas travel at the speed of light. So what concepts, what memes, what theories that were born in one specific corner of the internet or one culture are on that same journey right now, being imported, packaged, and remixed across the globe as we speak? What's the worldwide theory of today?